Hello and welcome to Oak Road Hatter, where we have been taking in the sights after a fantastic weekend for Luton Town. I'm joined by Jamie Castle as always. How are you doing, Jamie?
I think any answer has to include the words just fucking brilliant. It's just like what a weekend. It's been few and far between this year recording after a sort of a 3 points, and to record after a 3 points as big as that and against that team we all know about is yeah, it's just I'm just delighted. What a win, what performance, buzzing.
And for the first time this season, and for very good reason, we're joined by Kieran Robertson. How are you doing, Kieran?
Boys are back in town. Oh, boys, it's good to be here. Yeah, I saw a tweet earlier that said, "Oh, he only comes out for the big games." Yeah, I guess I only come out for the big podcast too. What can I say? Welcome back. There's a lot of positivity to talk about, isn't there? So, who better than me to come on and dissect it all for you?
Well, and as Kieran's mentioned there's plenty to talk about today. We'll be talking all things Luton versus Watford after that fantastic result, and we'll also be looking ahead to the visit of Sunderland to Kenilworth Road. But before that, don't forget to follow us on socials at Oak Road Hatter on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. And we really appreciate all the support you provide. It helps us produce the best content for you. But as I mentioned, we better get straight into things. Luton 3, Watford 0. And if anything, it was a generous result for Watford. Jamie, I'm coming straight to you. Just talk to me about that result.
Yeah, I mean, forgetting the performance, which we'll delve into, but as a result, it's huge. I think in terms of what results have meant for a season, it's probably one of the biggest results for quite a few years. And I say that obviously without the hindsight of what we go on to do, but I think if we end the season on a really positive outcome, whatever that is sort of deemed to be, I think you look back and point at this result as a potential game changer for the season. So yeah, clearly got some tough games to come up and sort of hopefully bounce into those on the back of this. But um, this should give nothing but positivity, confidence, just everything that we've been missing so far this season. So yeah, huge result. Helped by a very good performance. Obviously, still things to work on, no doubt. It wasn't the perfect performance, but it was a very good one. So it means a lot to not only the fans because of the game it was in, that Derby Day, not only the players and the staff, but it's a result that means hopefully a lot for our season.
And as Jamie mentioned there, it was a huge result and a huge performance, Kieran. And it was a huge performance all round for Luton.
It was, and it was one of those that, let's be fair, none of us expected. I think we've had, 8-9 games beforehand, and you sat there going, okay, there's zero optimism from any of us. I'll happily put myself in that camp. And just within about 2 minutes, we've clattered a Watford player, and I thought, wow, okay, 2 minutes in, I've seen a major difference already, like major mindset change. You go 1-0 up early doors, scrappy, yeah, who cares? But like, we've gone 1-0 up in games before, and then we just sort of let the other team have it. None of that this time. It was very much cool. We're 1-0 up. All right, let's carry on doing what we're doing. It was working before the goal anyway. We were sort of on the ascendancy, and first half was all of the same. And then obviously going into the second, well, we know the drill. We started early doors, and the rest is history.
And we've talked about early goals a lot this season, Jamie, and last season, and it was quite often against us. But against Watford, it was our early goal that really changed the game. When after what was about 4 or 5 balls into the box and corners causing havoc thanks to our absolutely giant defence we had in their box until they all went off injured. And then Jordan Clark just getting on the end of a ball that was, it looked by the looks of it, he was trying to get out of the way of the header and has actually just tapped it in past Backman. And it sent the Kenny wild, Jamie.
Yeah, incredible scenes. And it was a goal that I think settled everyone down a little bit. I said on the preview pod, the worst case scenario for Edwards was to go down sort of 1-0 inside 10-15 minutes because of what the impact that could have had on the crowd. And I thought, as good as we were overall for the first 5 or 10 minutes, we were a little bit nervy at times. Certainly on the ball, off the ball, we pressed really well, and you could see the commitment from the players. But on the ball, I mean, I think nothing sums it up more than the home sort of lob back to Kaminsky, which goes over his head and probably was a whisker wide, or that's certainly how it seemed from behind the goal. So yeah, it was a goal that settled everyone down, and yeah, it goes to Clark officially, but for me that's a Tom Holmes goal for him to, I think it was like on the half volley, like left foot sort of into the bottom corner, and probably goes in if Clark's not in the way. So unfortunate for Holmes to not get on the score sheet, but yeah, a goal that probably on the face of it we deserved. I think going into half time we were good, but I think the second half we were excellent. But the first half we were good, and I think certainly had an extra gear or two to find. But it was good to go into half time 1-0 up. I think we couldn't have argued if it was sort of like 0-0 or 1-0 at half time, but to see luck go a little bit on our side, I think there was a couple of incidents that you could probably say we were lucky in. I think McGuinness, who seemed to just sort of bring down Bio last man, sort of arm across him, was one. There was one where I think that there was a tackle last ditch, not the McGuinness one because that was an excellent tackle, but there was a tackle that was made at one point that seemed a little bit shaky, and they're two moments that go in our favour. So the luck was in our side a little bit, and I think if you look at the first 8 or 9 games, they're probably actions that go against us. So yeah, I think it certainly helped that it went in our favour, and to go in half time 1-0 up was super important, especially on the back of what was a good performance.
And you mentioned Tom Holmes there, and he was part of a team and specifically a defence that, well, none of us had seen play together at all. And despite that, Kieran, they were hugely impressive. I thought Holmes was brilliant. McGuinness was probably one of the top 2 or 3 players in that match. And Reece Burke was Reece Burke.
I mean, with Reece Burke, you know what you're going to get, right? You know that when he's fit, he's a Rolls Royce. And I'd actually, to a certain extent, I'd argue he's just as good as Mengi when he plays. McGuinness started the season well, had a few shaky games, or shaky moments in games is probably a fairer phrase. But my God, was he a monster. The one that sticks out to me is that sort of slide tackle to prevent Bio's shot at one point, and you're just like, and I turned around to Sue next to me and just thought, do you know what? That tackle in itself is 10 million quid. Like if we win the game because of that, you're laughing. Like that's worth all the money we've paid for him. As for Holmes, I think he stands out more because obviously his minutes for Luton have been few and far between. But he sort of, you could argue to an extent, you're thrown in the deep end, didn't you? Like you've barely played, and it's like, do you know what though? We're lobbing you in. We haven't really got much other choice because it's him or Joe Johnson. At that point, you barely played any minutes. What you got for us? And you just went. I mean, minus the nearly calamitous own goal in the second minute, but Holmesy, mate, I'll let you off. It's fine. Yeah, where we are. He was a colossus back there. Like, just did everything right. He's that no nonsense defender. Like, he's just, you know what, is what it is. Bosh, job done. As opposed to trying to overcomplicate anything. I think that's kind of just in that sort of game state. That's what you need.
Yeah, I think for me, just to pick out McGuinness in particular, I think everything that's said on Holmes was spot on, and yeah, I think it's a performance that us as fans needed from him just to see what he was all about. But in terms of McGuinness, I've been fairly critical on his performances so far this season, either fairly or unfairly. And yeah, that was by far and away his best game of the season, or well, best game in a Luton shirt, full stop. That tackle on Bio, as Kieran said, is it's out of this world, and I called it the tackle on Bio, but it's not just a tackle on Bio. It's his positioning in the build up, where I think at one point there was like 3 Watford players that were sort of like in front of the second to last Luton player. So he had to place himself on the pitch in the perfect situation that forced the ball where we wanted to go, and eventually we managed to force the ball into Bio out wide, which then gave McGuinness the ability to make that tackle. So not only the tackle itself from McGuinness, but just to build up to that as well, just is great defensive sort of like play. And yeah, respect. Starting to run out of words for him as a player. Really frustrating in terms of his groins that he has, because I hope it's not another sort of medium to long term injury. But I thought first half in particular he was absolutely immense. Like I was saying to, I think it was Billy at half time, like he is everything that we need in that wide centre half role. Everything from defensively and going forwards. Obviously, he had that chance in the first half himself as well. So really hope he's not out for a while, because I mean at this rate, if he is fit still and carries on, when Mengi, McGuinness, and Bell are back fully fit, then it's one of those that don't come back in, because Burke absolutely keeps his place.
Yeah, and we'll come on to obviously the injuries we picked up later on, but I wanted to talk a bit more about what the good performance and in particular the goals. Obviously, we opened the scoring 11 minutes in, and then just after half time, 2 minutes after half time, Carlton Morris did what he does arguably better or on par with anyone in the division, and that is a headed ball from the back post straight across goal, beating the keeper. At no point when he was going up for that header did you think he's going to do anything other than put this on target or score. He had no one on him, so I don't know how he was completely free. Terrible marking, but the header itself was absolutely perfect, Kieran.
It was, and like you said, it's what Carlton Morris does. He's our number 9. We know he's known for the simple goals, but the easy goals and the stuff that it put us in the ascendancy. I think at 1-0, anyone can be forgiven for thinking, do you know what? One slip and it's given away. And it was just one of those sorts of games where, do you know what? You just go at them early doors. You take that second goal early. It takes any like you score a goal early at any point, whether it's first half or second half. Scoring early, any game plan the team has gone out with goes out the window straight away, because it's like, all right, we're going to do this. Like it's the old cliche of, oh yeah, just shut up shop for a few minutes and then go again. And they didn't even bother that. They just opened the back door and let us straight in, which is hilarious, because that's just, it's Watford written all over, really, to be fair. But for Morris to get that, I think he personally needed that. You could see in his celebration. Obviously, there's one thing to be passionate for us. He loves us. And obviously, to score against Watford's always big. But I think he needed it. And I think also from another perspective, Doughty as well. Like his set pieces on the weekend were unreal, which shows a significant improvement considering they've been, sorry to say it, they've been pretty shoddy all season thus far. And it just felt like every ball he put in, -1 that I could think of on the weekend, was pretty much bang on the money, and all barring a couple of hiccups. We could have, like you said in the intro, we could have had 4, 5, 6. Like 3-0 genuinely is actually quite generous for them, and they're lucky that it wasn't any more. We wouldn't have been hearing 4-0s from them any longer, that's for sure.
Yeah, that goal itself was absolutely huge for the game. I think if you want to summarize like goals change games, and that is it. I think if you, what one moment that comes to mind is the Oxford goal at 2-1, and how that changed the game. I have no doubt that if we go into half time against Oxford 2-0 up, we go on to win that game. And Edwards has mentioned a couple of times now how that goal at 2-1, the players just seem to drop their heads and lose confidence. Now the Morris goal had the absolute opposite effect. I think if we'd gone a bit further into the game, maybe 55, 60 minutes at 1-0, I think Watford could have probably got back some of the sort of the dominance on the ball, and maybe created a few more chances. But that second goal just pumped so much belief and confidence into that group of players that really for the remainder of the game, it was all us. It was a dominant performance. So I think that adds a bit of explanation at times as to why our season has gone the way it has so far. As I think we've really lost out on the moments, and thankfully Saturday against the team that you want it to come against, that those moments went in our favour. And yeah, to score from a set piece, as Kieran said as well, was really, really important, because there's been a lot of narrative about how bad we are from set pieces, which I think Edwards himself has actually bitten back at in a press conference. I think he alluded to a stat that I've not personally seen, that actually in terms of set pieces that result in a shot, we're actually quite high up in the stats, but it's just a fact that either it's sort of the shot itself hasn't been the best. But yeah, to actually score from a set piece is really important, because all the best teams score from set pieces, and it's a big part of the game.
And I just wanted to talk a little bit more about Morris and Doughty, who's both of them were absolutely exceptional, as was everyone else for us. But those two in particular were, along with McGuinness, probably the best players on the pitch. I think you saw the absolute best of Morris all game. They couldn't get near him. I was talking to my mates after the game, and they were saying that there's not many players who have a touch as good as that when there's a man on him. His first touch when there's players hanging off of him is arguably better than his first touch when he's got time and space. He's just so unbelievably strong, and he was spraying the ball all over the place. He was bringing other players into play. And then Doughty all game, even when he was moved to, or particularly when he was moved to that left centre-back role after the injuries we picked up, he absolutely thrived, and he was absolutely loving the battle. And after the third goal, which we'll talk about, he was really winding up those Watford players to the point where Backman actually went to put his head into him, and Sissoko had to be held back by a couple of players because he had also lost his head. The same Sissoko that in the opening 2 minutes after Holmes headed the ball to Kaminsky and it went just wide, pretended to throw a ball at a small child in the front row of the Kenilworth Road end because they'd been winding him up. So, I mean, it says a lot really about his performance, but I just wanted to get your opinion on both of their performances, Jamie.
Yeah, incredible. I don't think I can say a lot more about Carter Morris. He's yeah, well, when he's on his game, he is one of the most complete centre forwards, not only in the Championship but in England. I think in terms of what he does on the ball, off the ball, as you say, not only on the ball when he's got possession, but when he's about to receive possession with players hanging off him, he's just incredible. And I think actually looking back, probably one of the best performances himself in the Luton shirt. I think yes, he's been electric for a few seasons now, certainly sort of in the Championship seasons, but that 90-minute performance from what is our captain is everything that we needed from a captain in a derby like that. So yeah, excellent from Morris, and hopefully he can kick on now, because if you look at strikers in this league that can bag 20 plus goals, he's one that could certainly do that. And I think, what's he on now? 4? I think he got 2 against Sheffield Wednesday and 1 against Watford. I think he got 1 more, so I think he's on 4 now. So yeah, incredible, and we certainly need more of that as we go on into the season. And on Alfie Doughty, yeah, I think for me, probably my man of the match. I think obviously Morris got it because of the goal and his general play, but I think the work that Alfie did, not only at left wing back in the first half, but at left centre back for the last 30 minutes, was, yeah, defensively, like, no one can tell me that Alfie Doughty can't defend. I think he's actually just as good defensively as he is going forward. Sometimes gets sort of caught out, but maybe sort of in position. But that's because he's a left wing back that gets really hard at the pitch and gets really forward. So you have to expect that at times. But just seeing that last 30 minutes performance, I think adds a couple more question marks in terms of what Edward said earlier in the season about Amari Bell is the only player that can allow us to play a back four, because he's that left back. Alfie Doughty can absolutely play left back in a back four. Like, based on that performance, seeing him defensively, yeah, and obviously at some point it'd be good to see him in that left back and a four role, just to see how he gets on. But all round for 90 minutes in a number of positions, he was excellent on Saturday.
Yeah, he was one of many exceptional players for us. And we'll talk about that third goal, because a player who, I mean, he very rarely puts a foot wrong for Luton. And when he does, Thomas Kaminsky does it spectacularly, as we saw early in the season. But on Saturday, he was exceptional in goal. And he got a clean sheet and he even got an assist for the third goal, where he sent the ball long to Jacob Brown, who was it Pollock who turned, or was it Porteous? I think it was Pollock.
It was Porteous.
It was Porteous at that stage. They'd moved over. They'd moved over because they were struggling to deal with the players they had been put on. Kaminsky put the ball long to him. Brown sat him down. I don't know what he did. He just sent him and finished delightfully. And that was what really killed. The game was already probably dead for Watford at that stage, but it made it very, very comfortable for everyone watching. And you could see the players enjoyed that one. Brown running over to the camera and giving it the Gay Bosho, who he then tagged on Twitter and commented after that. And Alfredo is showing the crowd the 3-0 scoreline and rattling those Watford players. So it was a great goal to sum up what was a great performance, Kieran.
Yeah, there was a reason that I put it on my Instagram story, and there was a reason I have watched it multiple times. Ryan Porteous, I just want to shout you out, my friend, because this is 2 games in a row that Scottish lard, because I don't actually think he resembles a professional footballer, twice in a row that he's given it this before a derby. La 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 la, just talking all sorts of shit. And the last time he came to the Kenny, he was that scared he refused to take a throw-in. Pathetic. This time, he got sat down by someone about 5 inches shorter than him, and he didn't get back up. He just sat on his ass and watched it all happen. And bless old Bonner, he pulled his hamstring because he was too busy doing his work for him. He's out for a significant amount of time. That's cute. Unlucky, mate. But the irony is I think, to credit Owen the Hatters, because he put it on his Instagram, Jacob Brown had actually called that he would score and said if he scored, it was out. So do you know what? Fair play that he actually had the belief that he was going into the game going, do you know what? I'm going to bag against this lot. And just really boiled some piss on the way. Like, just the crying celebration was brilliant. And I think it's going to be a synonymous thing with many derbies to come, albeit we're not playing them next season because they're staying where they are and we're not. We're going up, so fine. And
jumping a bit there because
it's the thing I always find fascinating. And I'll say this is there's a Watford fan at work, right? And we've been giving it the big one to each other all week, as we would. And the key thing he said after I'd finished demolishing him over WhatsApp at full time was, yeah, but you're still underneath us. And I'm like, yeah, but you know what that result signifies? Like, it's not just because it's you. And I'm not saying it because I hate your club and whatever you want to call yourselves. But you lot are terrible. Like, as a footballing unit, they are shocking. Actually shocking. And I saw so many different improvements in Luton's game on Saturday that I have wanted and been clamoring for such a long time over the last few weeks. But there was 11 players playing against us who just had no substance. And to back up my point, I'm just going to, again, special shout out for this one. So thank you very much to the Voices of the Vic podcast. Your content is excellent, as I'm about to read out to the crowd here. So on last night's podcast, we rated the players' performance against, they couldn't even spell our name, which is cute, but to be fair, they're Twatford in my eyes, so that's fine. Out of 10. Just want to read these out to the people because these are quite good. Bagman, 0. Andrews, 1. Pollock, 3. Very generous, but to be fair, he lost his head in the 3rd minute, so I guess the 3 does have some significance at least. Porteous, 3. Again, generous. Is that what? 3 times he's been put on his arse by a Luton player? Again, fair enough.
Minus 3 it should be, I think.
Ogbonna, 1, probably because he's only got 1 hamstring left. Ken Sema, because he probably had 1 touch of the ball. Deli Bashiru got a 3, which is impressive because I didn't realise he actually played on Saturday. Fair enough. Sissoko, 0. It should be at least a 6 because I caught him at least 6 times with his hands on his hips watching us demolish his team. Great showmanship from a captain. Chakvedadze, 4. I'm assuming that's through his 4 shots off target. Kayembe, 0. Fair enough, because again, I didn't realise he actually got the bus into Luton. I assumed that Harry Potter came and Wingardium Leviosa him out of the Kenilworth Road. And Bio -5 is actually really unfair, because I thought, apart from the fact he got booked in the 5th minute, he was the only one that actually looked like resembling any sort of danger. And even then, Mark McGuinness cleared him up every time. And they asked at the bottom, is there anything you'd change? Well, I've just given you all my reasons as to why I would change that. But fair play to the voices of the Vic, and at least they've got some honesty. But other than that, to be fair, mine aren't too far off. So hope you've enjoyed my synopsis, boys. And thank you again for that tweet. Much obliged. Jamie, over to you.
You were saying that Bio's -5 is unfair, but there was a stat that I saw that he only had 1 touch of the ball all game, and that was to take the kickoff from after a goal that he conceded. Oh, sorry, 1 pass. Finn just corrected me. It's one pass rather than 1 touch, because But he had 1 pass all game, and that was to take the kickoff after a goal that they'd just conceded.
That is sensational.
So, yeah, they've got Bio, we've got Adebayo. So make of that what you will.
Well, he's half the player that Eli is, so I guess that kind of makes sense too, right?
With all due respect to the voices of the Vic, they are working hard to produce content, and that is, I mean, they've been pretty honest in their review of their performance there, and at least we can say that for certain. Just one other thing I think we need to touch on before we go for a break, and that is, frustratingly, injuries, because whilst it was a brilliant performance all around from everyone, we saw more defensive injuries, which was so frustrating after that first half when we lost Tom Holmes at half time, which presumably was because of the knock to the head he got in the first half. I'm not sure. They've not said anything yet. And then Reece Burke, 7 minutes later? And they'd both been absolutely exceptional. Fortunately, we had Hashioka come in, who hasn't played all season, drop into centre-back, where he really struggled last season, and he looked completely comfortable there. He was very impressive, actually. And Joe Johnson came off the bench, very, very young still, being thrown into that sort of game. And whilst he struggled to stay with the press at times, I thought he was relatively solid, bar letting Ryan Andrews in behind, who had more time in the world to cross the ball than I've ever seen anyone have, and managed to clear it over I think it went over the bar. It might have gone out for a throw-in. I'm actually not sure. But apart from that, Joe Johnson sort of did the job that needed to be done, and Alfie again really helped him out in that area of the pitch. The other one that I wanted to talk about, the other player that came on, he's been another player on the fringe all season, and that is Pelly, because he came on and he was absolutely brilliant. Jamie, I just wanted to ask you about Pelly's performance.
Yeah, I think brilliant. Probably not. Probably over-egging it slightly. I thought it was very good. Played a few passes into Eli, sort of in behind, which was really good. And yeah, was the midfielder that we know he can be, which I think is very relieving, because he's had some really, really tough performances so far this season. So to come in of a game of that magnitude, and I had no doubt on Saturday that he'd come on and do the business. He's the sort of player, like he's the footballer version of Kieran. He is a big game player. He when he comes in those sort of games, he'll give it his all. So yeah, I'm really, really like happy for Pelly, because, as I was saying, like, no matter how poor he was before that, or before this game, I think people were forgetting just what he'd done for the club. So I'm really happy for him as a player, that he can come in a game like that and put in that level of performance, because he deserves it, because he deserves to get that love and affection from the Luton fans.
Kieran, I just wanted to ask you about those injuries we picked up, because it's been something we've been saying for weeks and weeks and weeks, and all of last season as well. Injuries to defenders. It's just so frustrating that they keep happening.
I don't want to say it right, but as a PT, S&C coach and fitness instructor by day for my day job. If there is someone in Luton Town, please send me your gym plans you're giving these players. I just want to see them out of curiosity so I can at least try and understand some rationale behind why on earth everyone gets injured. Like, the tough thing is, for some of them, you can't even say they've been under stress in minutes, because like Amari Bell literally was back for what felt like 5 minutes and then he was out again, which apparently is significant injury, someone said. I'm not quite convinced, but hey ho, I won't pretend to know. And it's always defenders as well at the moment. It's in terms of like reoccurrence. Like, yeah, Sambi had a long-term injury last season. Eli had a long-term-ish injury last season, but Eli's come back just fine. It just feels like whenever we buy defenders or whatever we're feeding our players or however they're training, it's nothing to it. Or there's maybe like you're overtraining, you're sort of overexerting the players. Dare I say that there's probably room to actually have a review of what's going on there in that sense, because evidently we're doing the same things and our players are still injured just as frequently at this point.
It is hugely frustrating, Jamie, but I think we can see, I mean, from that performance, you saw Mark McGuinness, who was the one defender who had potentially had an injury before the game, stayed injury-free and was absolutely immense when he had a right back and a very young left back either side of him. Well, he had a left wing back moved to centre back, and a left back who's very young moved to left wing back. So he had a real mixture of players around him, but he was still absolutely solid at the centre of that defence.
Yeah, really important. And I think, as Kim flagged, obviously it's annoying that it's defenders, because you probably say in the squad, the defenders are the one that probably should be built the best because of size and strength, etc. So yeah, really frustrating that we keep getting these defensive injuries. I think McGuinness looks like he held up pretty well, came back from Ireland duty early and played the full 90 and came out of it, I believe, okay. I think with Reece Burke's the injury that really concerns me because of, I guess, his history. I'm hoping that maybe he came off just as a bit of a precaution given his sort of his injury past. But yeah, if that is a longer term one, then that's really concerning. I think Tom Holmes should be okay. I think Edwards came out saying that he just felt a bit of this, a bit of that in terms of knocks and bruises and stuff. As I mean, it was his first start, and in a game of that magnitude, in a game of that intensity, you expect him to potentially be a bit battered and bruised. So I'm hoping that he'll be okay for Wednesday, if not Saturday. Obviously, Bell, I don't think is too far away now. Maybe a couple of weeks. Tedden, I think is probably only a game or two more. So I don't think it's as bad as the finishing lineups sort of made out. I mean, yeah, as you say, to have Doughty and Hashioka at the back with McGuinness was a bit of a red flag. But I think there's a few bodies to come back. And lastly, just a word on Hashioka, I thought was excellent. And all this narrative of, oh, Hashioka, he was shit for us last season. I don't expect him to be good for us this season, etc. I mean, he was thrown into the deep end in the Premier League, in a new country, in a position that is not really his strongest. And the games he played in, I mean, City away, and he was in a back three away at City. Like, you cannot judge him on those games, and was actually pretty unfortunate that he took one to the face in the first half to then let in an own goal as well, right? So I think for me, like, we need to cut all this talk about Hashi last season. It's a clean slate for him now. And he came on Saturday and was excellent. He was as good as Tom Holmes. I thought he was as good as the centre halves on the pitch, and a lot more of that is needed, because if Reece Burke is out for a while and so is Walters, then he can certainly sort of put his name in the hat to start on that right side of the three. So really happy with how he played on the weekend, and we're looking forward to seeing how he does in his actual position, which is out at a wing back.
Yeah, he's someone that I'm very keen to see actually play his position finally and eventually when it comes to that, because I don't know if we've actually seen him play right wing back at any point yet, and it must be so frustrating for him who's joined to play there after being pretty successful in Belgium playing there. He's just not had that opportunity, but I don't think he doesn't seem like the kind of player who will ever complain about being put into the team. We asked on Twitter who the surprise star was for Luton, and my favourite answer was from LTFC Dave, who said Hashioka. One technically replaced the other, so I'm counting them as one player for the purpose of this question. And I think he's absolutely right. Holmes and Hashioka were both very, very good, and both surprised everyone with how good they were on that right side of the back, or first the left side and then the right side of the back three. I just think it was a pretty faultless performance, besides the very early header from Tom Holmes. We're going to go to a quick break now, but before that, we've recently launched some very exciting content, and I'm going to leave Jamie to tell you more about it.
Cheers, Finn. I've not planned for that, but yeah, I mean, for those that don't follow us on socials, go check it out first of all. But we've launched a new merch range, which is really exciting. It's been a lot of work behind the scenes, probably best part of half a year or so now. It's been on our little whiteboard of ideas for a while, so to bring it to sort of bring it into the world has been, yeah, it's a really proud moment for us. And go check it out. Let us know what you think. We'll probably run a little competition or two in the coming weeks and months. So not to take Finn's job, but like and subscribe this video and yeah, sort of keep your eyes peeled for more content. We've got a lot more to come. And yeah, really excited to show you sort of all the other ideas we've got as well.
Yeah, as Jamie mentioned, there'll be some things going out on social media to get maybe some discounts, maybe some gifts, who knows. But before that, we've got another half of a podcast. So join us after the break, where we'll be looking ahead to the visit of Sunderland, who really are off to a flyer this season. Welcome back to Oak Road Hatter, where I'm still joined by Jamie and Kieran, and the games keep coming thick and fast. Next up, it's Sunderland at home on Wednesday night. So yeah, it's another big game for us, going straight off the back of the derby. It's top of the league, Sunderland, Jamie. Um, Obviously, completely different level of confidence now. Hopefully, particularly from the fans. We'd like to think the players will have the same confidence from the Watford game.
Yeah, I think confidence absolutely is. I mean, it's not hard, but the highest it's been all season. So that does help. It adds something. It's Kenny under the lights. And yeah, I think right now, probably except maybe Leeds, probably couldn't ask for a tougher test. Sort of on the back of what was a really tough. I mean, okay, I'm not saying Saturday was a tough game overall, but obviously just the intensity and the atmosphere that it gave off, obviously it makes it tough for players. But in terms of Sunderland, it would be a very, very tough game of football. I think outside of Luton, they're the team that I probably like the most in the league this year in terms of the players that they have. Just from a purely footballing perspective, I'm very hot on Sunderland this season. I really like some of their players. The midfield three in particular. I mean, Dan Neil is someone that I was desperate that we could hopefully poach from Sunderland in the summer, because there was a bit of a contract dispute, and I was really hopeful that we could poach him from them. Joe Bellingham, obviously younger brother to Jude, so a little bit in his shadow, but don't underestimate how good he is as well as a footballer. I think lots of academy coaches were saying that relative to age level and sort of at the under 16s, under 15s, he was better than Jude at every age bracket. So that shows sort of the ability that he has. And then Chris Rigg, he's obviously dubbed as their wonder kid. He's 17 years old, which is just absolutely ridiculous. Talk about making me feel old, or just a player. So it's been a long time since I first had sort of the feeling of a player being younger than me, but to see 17 and him being a starting at 11 for a championship side is incredible, and probably not been the best this season, but just he has the moments technically that he can just pull off some really wonderful stuff. Dennis Serkin, a player I really love. I mean, rivals Doughty, I think, in terms of best left wing back or left back in the league. Came from Spurs, and he's sort of not looked back really. And other than that, they've signed really well. Chris Metham at the back. Again, he sort of spent a few years in the Premier League and he's come back down. You can tell he's a top level defender. Alan Brown. I mean, I spoke about all the midfielders that they have that start, but he was someone that I would have loved to have signed on a free transfer in the summer. So they've got him for depth as well. So yeah, all round a really enjoyable side to sort of like watch and look at. Maybe going forwards lacking a little bit. I think if I was to compare our forward line at their best to theirs, I absolutely would take ours all day long, like Morris and Eli and Chong over Isidore, Mundo and Roberts. But yeah, individually they're all good players that definitely have a lot more to give. So yeah, the threats all over the pitch. It's going to be a really interesting game and a really big test. And if we can come out of it with 3 points or play really well and get a point, then yeah, that I think that would add even more confidence than that win against Watford done, because just how good a side Sunderland are. So yeah, it's a game that I'm really looking forward to. It's a game that, ironically, the three biggest games of our promotion season were Watford, Sunderland, and Coventry, and we've got them all three in a row in a week. So this is the second of the three of the promotion season trilogy. So yeah, just hope that the atmosphere at the Kenny under the lights is as good as that semi-final game, because if it is, then it'll be some test for them as well.
Yeah, it's a very talented Sunderland team. Midfield in particular, as you've mentioned, it's also a very young team. That midfield, obviously, you've got Bellingham and Rigg, who are both teenagers still, and then the old head of that midfield three is a 22-year-old Dan Neil. So if there's something that we can take advantage of, it is that youthfulness and that inexperience in this sort of in a big game where hopefully having the crowd on top of them and having the pressure that Luton put on Watford, if we can repeat that, that causes problems for them, Jamie.
You say that, but that they themselves play week in week out at the Stadium of Light, and we know what atmosphere that generates, albeit that's in their favour. They've played in some really big games this season. I mean, Middlesbrough at home, that's the Tyne-and-Wear derby. That's going to be a big atmosphere. They've played Leeds at home, Burnley at home. Like they've played some really big games. I think their away form is not as good. I think they've obviously had two fairly recent defeats to Watford and Plymouth that I think probably on paper are really poor results. But I wouldn't expect them to be too daunted by coming to Luton. And just on the age you said of those three in particular, I mean, I would put quite a bit of money, if I was able to put money on it, to see one of those play for England one day. If that was a potential bet that I could do, that Bellingham or Rigg or Neil that will play for England one day, I would put a lot of money on that, because I think at least one of them will, probably two, and maybe all three. I think that just shows how highly I rate those three in particular as players.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think at least one of them will be in the England squad, if not two, maybe all three at some point. Another player that I think Kieran can probably appreciate in that team, and he's a much older, and I say much older, he's the oldest player in that starting lineup, and he's 29, and that's Luke O'Nien. I mean, other than he's not a big player, but he sits there at centre back, and he's an absolute shithouse, and I'm sure Kieran can appreciate him.
I've seen better. He's like the wannabe shithouse. He's like you see your big brother in the playground, and you're looking up to him, and like it's like Luke O'Nien looks at someone like Henry Lansbury and goes, "I want to be like him when I grow up." except he does it in like stupid ways, and the big brother has to go like, all right, listen, son, we can't be having that. Like, for example, piggybacking on players. Why? But the thing with the little brother is they're always twice as bloody annoying as the big brother. So Luke 09 rattles people like no other, and that is why I appreciate it. Equally though, Saturday displayed to me that, by God, have we got a couple of shithouses in our squad, like just lurking out of nowhere. Jacob Brown, didn't know you had that in your son. Really appreciated seeing that on Saturday, and I know you brought it out in style because it was them. But I knew Alfie Doughty had it in him. He's always like had that little like, oh, will he, won't he? And then when you saw the 3-0, I was like, oh, Doughty, I love you so much. And he was just like, you could see him just talking back about them like, yeah, don't care. Like, fantastic. Luke 09 has the potential to rattle though. And dare I say, if someone said to me in the summer, oh, Luke 09's available, I'd be like, yeah, absolutely, sure. Because the thing with him, and I remember it vividly from when we went up to Sunderland playoffs a couple of years ago, was I laughed when he played at centre half. When obviously, because that's when they had no fit centre halves, and it was like Luke 09, Trey Hume, and someone else playing centre back. And I laughed because I was like, they're all about 5'0". But they offered a different style of defending, and I actually kind of gained a bit more respect for him as a player and his versatility that evening on that basis alone. So when you've got a player that can shoehorn himself into 1, 2, I could think of at least 3 positions on that pitch in centre half, right back, centre mid that you can play, you're probably the first name on the team sheet. And if Sunderland need to make changes to adapt to our style or to reinforce a strong hold on the game, having a player like that, to be honest, is invaluable.
Just
Yeah,
on
he's
the just on that shithouse conversation, did I want to see Tom Krause as well after Morris's goal? He just squared up to Daniel Bachmann in a bit of a throwback to some German Austrian conflict. So that was pretty interesting. I would love to have heard what Tom Krause said to Bachmann. I hope it was in like some really like harsh German, because that would have been some great entertainment.
I mean, we'll go back to the game we're going into, because I'm sure Jamie has plenty to think about on that. We discovered he's big into his spreadsheets as well. So, no, just one more player I wanted to talk about, and he's probably a player that goes under the radar a bit for Sunderland. In the past, he's been sort of not outclassed, but outshone by Jack Clark. But Patrick Roberts, he consistently does a job on that right side, Jamie, and I think they're getting the best out of him now. He's the main man in terms of the wingers they have.
Yeah, and he's yet another player that I've name dropped at some point that I would like to see bring in. He's best mates with Eli, which obviously adds a little bit to Wednesday as well. I think that they were both at Fulham together, and I've seen them a number of times on Instagram on holiday together or at some point doing bits together. So they're best mates. And yeah, just very steady, good Championship, maybe bottom end Premier League wide forward. I think he has the technical ability maybe to go higher. Maybe lacks a little bit in terms of athletic ability. Probably not. He's not rapid or he's not strong. He's probably just a bit of a best of both. He's a bit of a Jordan Clark really, but just probably with a bit more technical ability in terms of those forward areas and a bit more end product. So yeah, a player that I really like, and I think we were even linked to him in the summer. It might have been a throwaway rumor that had nothing to it, but yeah, if we brought him in the past, I would have been buzzing with it. So another player that we have to watch and be careful of, and yeah, I think it just shows that actually how strong that team was in the past, right, with Jack Clark and then Roberts and that as well. So it just shows how strong their forward line was in previous seasons.
Obviously, we've got very talented players that across the board that can play. It's difficult to predict at this point who will start, because we've not heard the team news from Edwards in terms of who will be definitely unavailable and who will be available. But I just wanted to talk about a couple of players who've impressed at times this season and certainly impressed on Saturday. Firstly, it's Jacob Brown, because he was very good when he came on, and he's been very good in a number of games since he returned from his injury. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on whether you think it's a game that he should start, Kieran.
I'm going to go against your question, and I'm going to say no, on the basis of, I think, look at how different the game was in terms of that left-sided position, let's say. When he came on, sort of Chong was playing more inside forward. He was a lot more central as opposed to drifting out wide. Like, he had his moments, but he would only ever come out wide but allow enough space for a Doughty overlap. Whereas I think by the time Brown had come on, am I right in saying that Joe Johnson was already on the pitch? Yeah. So for me, you could see it was more of an emphasis of Brown was playing more wider, so that then Johnson had the cover of him and Doughty.
Yeah.
He had the cover of Brown further forward, and he had the cover of Doughty behind him, just as that little bit of extra protection. But then what that allowed is, and it showed in his goal, is it allowed Kaminsky to have that sort of something different to aim at. And actually, rather than just, right, lump it to Eli or Morris, chuck it down Bosch, it was more, actually, hang on, Brown's drifted out wide and he's created space. What can then the rest of the team do as a result of that? And I actually think it gave them something else to think about. He's an impact player, at least at the moment, while he's returning to full fitness. He is a true impact player and just offers something different. Like, if you want to start with Chong and you want that bit of creativity on that side, sweet as. If you want someone who's just going to run, and basically what Watford tried doing to us was just playing balls through the channels. If that's the game that you're going to play, then Brown is better suited to that. But I think based on how we'll defend against, or how we'll attack, against Sunderland, I don't think Brown should start. But I want to see the same sort of cameo, 65, 70, put him on, offer something different. If he scores again, maybe you start to look at it. But people have been clamouring for Joe Taylor all season. He's barely got any minutes. Based on what I saw of Brown, I'd actually put him higher in the pecking order.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say he probably is higher in the pecking order than Joe Taylor. Jamie, obviously, Edwards had him last season and he had a lot of faith in him before his injury. And then since he returned, he's been in the team regularly. That is going to be our question for today's podcast. Should Jacob Brown start against Sunderland? So we'll be putting something out on social media. We'd love to know your thoughts on that. And if you think he should, you need to tell us who he'd come in for and why you think he should start. And the same if you don't think he should start. Why is that? But Jamie, another player I wanted to ask you about is Nakamba. Obviously, he didn't play against Watford, and I was very surprised that he did play, but he didn't start. I was very surprised to see him not starting. But would you bring him in from the start?
I think I would be minded to, just because of the challenges that their midfield poses. I think because he was playing Chong more centrally, he could get away with a Krause and Clark midfield too, because it was a bit more of a compact midfield three. But I just think, given the way Sunderland play, it's like a 4-3-3. It's an actual midfield three rather than like a midfield two and 110 in front. I think we need someone that can really break up Sunderland's play in the middle, and I think Clark was excellent. I think he's at times been harshly put down this season, but was excellent on Saturday. But I just think Nakamba just has that ability, he has that nose to be able to sniff out a bit of danger and break up play, and I think that's something that we're going to need a lot on Wednesday. I'm desperate to see Krause and Nakamba together. So if we can have Krause and Nakamba in the midfield too, and then as Kieran said, have Chong, Eli, and Morris together again for another game. Let Chong try and pull some strings, and let Morris and Eli run at Mepham and run at 09. I would bring in Nakamba for Wednesday.
I mean, it's certainly a good problem to have now that people have hit form and they're all playing well. And Edwards has to make a decision because of that, rather than people being unavailable or playing particularly badly. Obviously, defence will probably be the issue in terms of selection, and we might see Hashioka start at centre-back again. We might see Mengi come back in. I know that on Sky Sports, they said Mads was having a late fitness test, which presumably failed because he was out of the squad. But he might be back as well. Who knows how long he manages, but he's the sort of player that could come in if one of the other back three is unavailable. So it's a difficult one to predict, that back three. Just before we go, I'm going to come to you guys for score predictions. And none of us got it right again, but we did almost all get it right in terms of the way the result went, apart from Lewis, who thought it was going to be a draw. But this time, I reckon one of us is going to get it right. So, Jamie, I'm going to start with you.
I go into it with a bit of optimism. It's weird to say that I'm optimistic and say a draw, but I think a draw would be a very good result on Wednesday. I think to follow up a good performance and an excellent result with another good performance and a solid result to hold the current league leaders at home would be. I think it would add a lot more value as well. Well, obviously a win would be amazing, but I think a draw would be good. So I'm going to go 1-1. I think it'll be a very tough game, but I think we'll more than match them, and I think that'll give me and a lot of other fans a lot of confidence to go out there and show that, albeit at home, we've matched one of the better sides in the league.
Kieran?
It's funny because I thought that playing against them on Saturday was going to be the real test. In hindsight, barely left second gear, did we, to be honest? And it's not really a test. It was just another day at the office. But joking aside, Sunderland is the real test in it. And I think we needed Saturday because we needed a result of all the teams to go out and pump. It had to be them. And it's the perfect result that galvanizes not just a squad in terms of actually this is how we can play. It galvanizes and rebuilds that sort of confidence between squad and fans again, of like, actually, we believe that you can do that too. Not just you guys thinking, yeah, we're capable of pulling off a good result. It's more us watching at home for the last 8-9 games have gone, can you? Because, like, admittedly, I've thought that. There's been a lot of times I've been watching games going, can we actually beat them though? And 8 times out of 10, the answer's been no. So it's one of those where I think this is the true test as to, right, how are we actually going to finish this season, or how are we looking to sort of push on this season? Are we going to be that team that gives those big teams trouble like we did in our promotion season? Every big team we came against, my God, we caused them trouble. And even in the Prem last season, we were doing that too. But in this league, you don't want to just cause them trouble and then inevitably lose in the 90th minute. We need to be competitive in these sorts of games. I'm going to be on a big fence sit this evening, and I'm going to go Luton 1, Sunderland 1.
Matching Jamie's score there.
Yeah, I'm matching the score, but with a preface on significant improvements in performance. So we're not going to walk away going, should have won that. We're going to walk away going, competitive game, points deserved. We competed with what's currently the best team in the league.
I mean, I thought about going for a draw. I thought about going for a bit of a Desmond, but I've decided to be a bit more optimistic, and whether it's hopeful or wishful optimism or
irrational,
or irrational, I've gone for a 2-1 Luton win, but I think it'll be an incredibly tough game. But I think we might just nick it because of that home factor and the fact that I think everyone will be really up for it on under the lights at Kenilworth Road, a game against Sunderland under the lights at Kenilworth Road. And the last time that happened, it was probably the best atmosphere any of us have ever heard at Kenilworth Road. So, yeah, I'm going to go with a 2-1 and probably more optimism than expectation. But we can only hope. That's all from us now. But before we go, I just wanted to remind everyone of today's question from the podcast. And that's, should Jacob Brown start against Sunderland? And we'll be putting that question on social media with the podcast, so you can all have your say. And before we go, don't forget to check out all our content on the Oak Road Hatter website. Just search Oak Road Hatter. And that includes all of our new merch that has been launched recently, and we're sure you'll love. But from me, from Jamie, and from Kieran, who has joined us for the first time this season, but I'm sure not the last. Thank you for listening.